50,000 years ago, on a remote Indonesian island, a human species unlike any other walked the earth. They stood barely 3 feet tall, hunted pygmy elephants, and survived for hundreds of thousands of years. Then they vanished completely. For 2 decades, their disappearance remained one of prehistory's most puzzling mysteries. New research published in late 2025 finally gives us an answer. Welcome to History That Hits. Today, when the Hobbits died, the climate catastrophe that ended a human species, and what it reveals about our own vulnerability. Picture a creature barely waist-high to you, with a brain the size of a grapefruit. Not an ape, a human. Your cousin, separated by perhaps 1 million years of evolution. They crafted stone tools. They hunted cooperatively. They controlled fire. And they thrived on an island that should have been their fortress against extinction. So what killed them? The answer involves a drought that lasted centuries, the collapse of an entire ecosystem, and possibly an encounter with us modern humans. The story begins in September 2003, when Australian and Indonesian archaeologists were excavating Liang Bua cave on the island of Flores. They expected to find traces of modern humans. What they uncovered instead was something nobody had predicted, a nearly complete skeleton of an adult human standing just 3 feet 7 inches tall. The individual, catalogued as LB1, had the proportions of a 3-year-old child, but the dental wear of an adult around 30 years of age. At first, many researchers dismissed the find. Perhaps it was a modern human with a medical condition, microcephaly, perhaps, or some other pathology that affected growth. The controversy raged for over a decade. Some scientists argued the small skull indicated disease. Others saw a distinct species. The debate split the paleoanthropological community. Then came the breakthrough. In 2016, improved dating methods placed the Hobbits at 50 to 60,000 years old, far too ancient for modern human diseases. As Russell Seo-chan of the University of Iowa put it, the new evidence drove the final nail in the coffin of the diseased human hypothesis. Homo Floresiensis was real, a separate human species that walked the earth alongside our ancestors. But that revelation only deepened the mystery of their disappearance. These hobbits weren't newcomers to Flores. Evidence suggests their ancestors arrived on the island between 700,000 and 100,000 years ago. Over countless generations, something remarkable happened. The larger human ancestors who colonized Flores began to shrink. Their bodies adapted to the island's limited resources. Scientists call this process insular dwarfism. It's common among island animals. Smaller bodies need less food, a crucial advantage when resources are scarce. The hobbits weren't alone in shrinking. Elephants on Flores evolved into pygmy versions, Two-Stegeton Florensis insularis, standing barely shoulder-high to their mainland cousins. These pygmy elephants became a primary food source for the hobbits. The two species coexisted for hundreds of thousands of years in a delicate island ecosystem. For perhaps 500,000 years, this arrangement worked. Flores was a world unto itself, isolated, stable, perfectly balanced between predator and prey. Then the climate shifted, and everything the hobbits had built over hundreds of thousands of years began to unravel. New research published in December 2025 analyzed sediment cores from Flores, revealing a devastating pattern. Around 76,000 years ago, a long drying trend began. The drought intensified between 61,000 and 55,000 years ago. Rainfall dropped dramatically, rivers shrank, the lush forests that sustained life began to wither. This wasn't a dry season that would pass. This was a centuries-long transformation of the entire island ecosystem. The rules of survival that had worked for eons no longer applied. The pygmy elephants, the hobbits' primary food source, couldn't adapt fast enough. Their population crashed around 61,000 years ago as vegetation died off. Imagine watching your world collapse in slow motion. The streams where you drank running dry. The forests where you hunted falling silent. The animals you depended on disappearing one by one. The hobbits had survived countless challenges over their long history on Flores, but this drought was different. It lasted for thousands of years with no relief in sight. Their population, never large to begin with, would have fragmented. Small bands struggling to find enough to eat, their territories shrinking as habitable land disappeared. Then, around 50,000 years ago, a major volcanic eruption on Flores delivered another devastating blow to an already vulnerable population. Volcanic ash would have blanketed what remained of the forests, It would have poisoned water sources and killed off surviving vegetation. For the hobbits, it was likely the final blow. But there's another factor researchers are now considering, one that might have accelerated the hobbits' extinction even before the volcano erupted. Modern humans, Homo sapiens, were expanding across Southeast Asia during this exact period. Archaeological evidence suggests they reached the Indonesian islands around the same time the hobbits vanished. The drought may have forced a fatal encounter. As resources dwindled, the hobbits and newly arrived modern humans would have competed for the same shrinking territory. Modern humans had significant advantages. Larger bodies meant greater strength. Larger brains may have meant more sophisticated tools and hunting strategies. In a competition for survival, the odds favored the newcomers. We've seen this pattern before. When modern humans expanded into Europe, the Neanderthals disappeared within a few thousand years. Competition with our species has proven deadly for every human cousin we've encountered. But here's what makes the hobbit extinction different. Climate didn't just make the encounter possible, it may have made it inevitable. Without the drought, the hobbits might have continued thriving in their established territories. Modern humans might have bypassed Flores entirely, finding easier hunting grounds elsewhere. Instead, the climate catastrophe compressed both species into the same shrinking habitable zone. It was a collision course written in centuries of failed rainfall. By the time the volcano erupted 50,000 years ago, the hobbits may have already been on their last legs, a population depleted by hunger and conflict, with nowhere left to retreat. The volcanic eruption wasn't the cause of their extinction. It was the period at the end of a very long sentence that climate change had been writing for 15,000 years. The last hobbits walked the earth around 50,000 years ago. After that, the archaeological record falls silent. No more tools, no more bones, just empty caves and forgotten memories. For 50 millennia, no one knew they had ever existed. Their story lay buried beneath layers of volcanic ash and accumulated sediment, waiting to be told. Then came that day, in September 2003, when a trowel broke through the sediment and touched a skull that hadn't seen light in 50,000 years. The nickname came almost immediately. Someone on the excavation team made the connection. These tiny humans looked like they'd stepped out of Tolkien's imagination. The hobbits had returned to the world. There's a reason this discovery captivated the world. It proved that human evolution was far stranger and more diverse than anyone had imagined. Until 2003, most people assumed modern humans had been alone on Earth for at least 100,000 years. The hobbits proved we had company until just 50,000 years ago. Think about what that means. Our ancestors may have encountered the hobbits. They may have traded with them, fought them, or simply watched them from across a valley. We'll never know if stories of the hobbits survived in local memory. Flores has legends of small hairy forest people called Ibu Gogo. Coincidence? Perhaps, perhaps not. If you want to see casts of the original hobbit remains, the Smithsonian's Human Origins exhibit in Washington displays them alongside other human species. It's a profound experience. But the hobbit story isn't just about the past. It's a warning about the present. Climate change has ended civilizations before. It ended an entire human species. The hobbits survived for hundreds of thousands of years. They had fire, tools, and sophisticated hunting strategies. None of it protected them when the climate turned against them. Their extinction took thousands of years. Ours, if we're not careful, could unfold much faster. We have more power to change our world for better or worse. Consider how drought has shaped human history, not just on Flores, but everywhere. The collapse of the Mayan civilization, the fall of Angkor Wat, the Dust Bowl migrations of the 1930s. Climate has always been a silent player in human history. The hobbits remind us that survival is never guaranteed, not even for species that have thrived for 500,000 years. If these stories interest you, the intersection of climate, evolution, and extinction, consider subscribing. We explore history's forgotten chapters every week. The hobbits had no way to understand what was happening to their world. No scientists to study the changing climate. No records to track the declining rainfall. We have those tools. We understand the mechanisms of climate change in ways no previous species ever could. The question is whether we'll use that knowledge. The research team that solved the hobbit extinction mystery used sediment analysis, pollen records, and computer modeling. Tools the hobbits could never have imagined, revealing what destroyed them. Their work isn't just academic, it's a message from 50,000 years ago delivered through volcanic ash and fossilized pollen. The climate has killed before. It can kill again. Homo Floresiensis walked the earth for perhaps 700,000 years. Modern humans have been around for roughly 300,000. We're younger than the Hobbits were. They adapted to their island. They evolved to survive with less. They built a civilization that endured through ice ages and volcanic eruptions. And still, the climate found them. The lesson of the Hobbits isn't despair. It's awareness. Understanding that we share this planet with forces far older and more powerful than any civilization. The Hobbits couldn't change their climate. We might be able to change ours. That's the difference and the responsibility that makes their story so urgent today. History that hits. Because the past has something to say if we're willing to listen.